Hey guys, this week we were asked to find some newspaper articles of a particular event in American history that we could use as primary documents for American history class. I actually chose articles on the Tet Offensive in 1968. And you might want to ask, well, why did you choose something that actually took place in Vietnam rather than something that occurred in America, such as the assassination of John F. Kennedy or um, something with the civil rights movement? I originally actually thought about doing this video on the Robert Kennedy assassination, but I kind of changed my mind and decided to do the Tet Offensive instead. And I think the Tet Offensive was actually a seminal event in American history, and I'll explain why. There are a number of reasons. The first one, it actually fueled the fire for the anti-war movement in 1968. Prior to 1968, the anti-war movement wasn't very popular. In fact, most Americans actually thought they were unpatriotic, and a slight majority of the people actually did support the war. After 1968, when the Tet Offensive occurred, it it actually did help the anti-war movement. The Army brass, including General Westmoreland, actually argued that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. We were actually winning. We were winning at Vietnam. It was only a matter of time before victory would occur. However, when the Tet Offensive occurred, most people saw, well, we're not actually winning the war. If the Viet Cong were able to capture various cities, a number of hamlets and villages, and they attacked military bases. They embarrassed the United States by actually occupying the embassy, 5 floors of the embassy, and the military police and the Marine guards of the embassy actually had to retake it. And we also weren't really all that prepared. It was almost a surprise. Although I did read parts of a book that was actually a memoir by an infantry officer who actually argued that, well, we knew something was up, and he actually took part in the Tet Offensive, defending a certain area of Vietnam. But we were embarrassed, and this is also leads into the fact that uh, this also destroyed the political career of President Johnson. Prior to that, President Johnson, I believe, may have been able to win the 1968 election against Richard Nixon, but with the Tet Offensive, it clearly damaged uh, his role in the war, and it pretty much ended his political career. He actually had to announce that he was no longer going to seek the nomination of the Democrat Party in 1968, and he left office. And once he was done in office, he actually took up drinking and smoking because by that time he just really didn't care if he lived or died. And I believe he actually ended up dying in 1974. So Vietnam actually left his legacy in tatters, if you will. And also, it actually showed that the Vietnamese were prepared to do what it took to actually win the war. Although technically Tet was a disaster for the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese. North Vietnamese army actually had to take over after the Tet Offensive because the Viet Cong establishment was was basically slaughtered. They were wiped out, and they were never able to recover from those losses. And so the NVA actually had to take over the fighting in South Vietnam. And I actually picked out a number of articles. One actually talks about how the U.S. Embassy was actually disturbed by the South Vietnamese government by arresting certain opponents of the government. They were concerned about that. Uh, I have a number of articles on uh, actually the Viet Cong. They discuss the Viet Cong in detail, and it actually talks about when the embassy was taken over. And a lot of these articles actually kind of report what was going on the ground, and basically you could read the chaos that was occurring in South Vietnam during the Tet Offensive. Uh, they also did note that uh, the Tet Offensive, although it was a general offensive, it was supposed to bring a general uprising as well, which did not occur. So the North Vietnamese uh, political leadership misread what the South Vietnamese people were thinking, and so this also has something uh, to do with the failure of the Tet Offensive on their part. I mean, yes, it was a tactical victory for us, but in the end, it turned out to be a strategic victory for them because this actually fueled the anti-war movement, which was to their advantage, quite frankly. And so, uh, I think that's why the Tet Offensive is something that should be covered in American history class, such as a survey class, uh, particularly like second semester. Uh, well, thank you for listening and have a good day.